Reflecting on my life now, I can hardly believe that 30 years of marriage passed in what feels like an instant. At 45, I find myself haunted by a decision I made 3 years ago, the worst mistake of my life. My husband and I first met at 15 and fell deeply in love. While neither of us was the other's first relationship, we built something strong and enduring that lasted 3 decades. I genuinely believed we were happy. Sure, my husband had his moments of stress and frustration, but he was always forthright with his emotions. If something troubled him, he'd speak up. We both had fiery tempers, but we never let our disagreements fester. Together, we raised 4 children, 3 daughters and a son. I chose to stay home and care for them while my husband worked grueling hours, often exceeding 50 a week, at a construction company. Despite his demanding job, he made it a priority to help around the house. Every weekend, he insisted I rest. I'd wake up to a spotless home and breakfast ready on the table. The cracks in our life began to show after our oldest daughter left for college and our youngest entered junior high. With my children no longer needing constant supervision, I felt adrift, as though I had lost my purpose. My husband noticed my restlessness and gently suggested that I find something to reignite my spark, perhaps by returning to work. Looking back, I wish I had picked up a hobby like gardening or joined a book club, but instead, I found a job as a customer service representative at a local insurance company. After 20 years as a homemaker, stepping back into the workforce felt liberating. 2 younger colleagues, Jade and Raven, welcomed me into their circle. My husband encouraged me to spend time with them, reasoning that it was only fair since he regularly socialized with his friends. Initially, I was grateful for their company, but they began to sow seeds of doubt in my mind. They'd point out younger men at work and tell me I deserved better, insisting I was wasting my best years with someone who didn't truly value me. Their friend Trevor, an accountant, started joining us for lunch. He was charismatic fit, and my age, a stark contrast to my husband, who was worn down from years of hard work. Trevor echoed Jade and Raven's sentiments, and to my shame, I started believing them. I began to see my husband through a distorted lens. When he expressed affection, I recoiled and started making cruel remarks about his appearance. He sensed the growing distance and confronted me, but I dismissed his concerns, claiming he was imagining things. Trevor, meanwhile, became bolder. We started an affair, meeting in secret. For a time, I felt alive, intoxicated by the thrill of something new. But with that excitement came deceit. I lied, avoided my husband, and grew increasingly cold. I hardly recognized the person I had become. The unraveling came one evening over dinner. My husband noticed a necklace I was wearing, one Trevor had given me, and his expression shifted to something I'll never forget, sheer devastation and fury. He crushed a glass in his hand, cutting himself deeply. Our son, witnessing the scene, fled upstairs in tears. Later, after returning from the hospital with stitches, my husband quietly but firmly said, "I want a divorce." His words hit me like a sledgehammer. For the first time in our marriage, I saw genuine contempt in his eyes. Our youngest child stood on the stairs, looking at me with a mix of hurt and disappointment. After he moved out to a modest apartment across town, Trevor began showing up uninvited, despite my protests. My children resented him, and, by extension, me. When my husband came to pick up our son for the first time, Trevor tried to assert dominance, but my husband only laughed and said, "Not yet." The tension between them was palpable, and after they left, I lashed out at Trevor. Instead of taking accountability, he turned the blame on me. From that moment, Trevor's true colors emerged. He became controlling, dictating what I wore, what I ate, and his words grew cutting and cruel. I accepted it all, believing it was my penance for what I had done. The divorce proceedings were swift. We divided everything equally, and I kept the house but had to pay him his share. Our son chose to live with his father, and my older daughter stopped speaking to me entirely. I only learned of my younger daughter's engagement through a passing comment from my ex-husband. When we finalized the divorce, he left his wedding ring on the papers, a quiet but crushing gesture. Staring at that ring, I finally grasped the magnitude of what I had destroyed. I had shattered my family for nothing. A week after the divorce, Trevor hit me for the first time. The turning point came when I accidentally knocked over Trevor's phone. He flew into a rage, and I broke down in tears. In my distress, I called my ex-husband, but all he asked was whether Trevor had hurt the children. I assured him he hadn't. Over the next 2 months, Trevor's behavior spiraled further out of control, and I convinced myself that I deserved it all. For 30 years, my ex-husband had never laid a hand on me, but now I accepted the abuse as a form of punishment for my mistakes. Everything came to a head when Trevor hit my youngest daughter. She had been spending the summer at university and was the only one still living with me. My other children were staying with their father. After the incident, she called him in a panic. He rushed home immediately. When he arrived, he didn't hesitate. He gave Trevor a free shot, then knocked him out cold. I begged him to stop, but he didn't listen. He asked our daughter which hand Trevor had used to strike her, and once she told him, he stepped on it with all his weight. He then dragged Trevor to the hospital and told them that Trevor had fallen down the stairs. Trevor left town the following day and quit his job. I tried to get back on track, to start fresh and return to work, but then I learned the painful truth. My ex-husband was now seeing all my single friends, including Raven, the woman who had once encouraged me to cheat. Raven constantly reached out, crying and complaining that he wouldn't return her calls. I knew he was doing it just to hurt me, but it still stung. I attempted to date again, but it never worked out. As a single mother, I found most men intimidated by my situation, and none of them could measure up to my ex-husband. Not even Trevor. It made me question everything. I realized how truly happy I had been before all of this, but I had let toxic influences manipulate me and destroy my marriage. The silence at home grew deafening. My son either locked himself in his room or went to stay with his father. My daughters, aside from the youngest, wanted nothing to do with me, and the rejection was heart-wrenching. Then my ex-husband called for a family meeting, wanting to bring us back together as a family, although most of the kids weren't eager to participate. During the meeting, our son lashed out at me, cursing me. My ex-husband slapped him, then asked, "Did I ever curse your mothers?" Our son shook his head, and my ex continued, "She is your mother. She loves you. You need to respect her. What happened between us is none of your concern." From that point, things with the children gradually improved. 2 years after the divorce, my ex-husband and I began to rebuild our friendship. He would come over to fix things around the house, and we'd talk about the kids, even sharing laughs. One day, I impulsively tried to kiss him, but he pulled away, simply saying no before leaving. A month later, I learned he had started dating my son's math teacher. She was 12 years younger than us, very beautiful, and they seemed to have a lot in common. It hurt to see him look at her the way he once looked at me, to hear him laugh with her, to see him focus all his attention on her. That was when it truly hit me. I had been so lucky to have him. Everyone had always told me that, but I hadn't understood until that moment. When I heard they were getting married and expecting twins, I woke up in the hospital to find him sitting by my bedside, brushing my hair from my face. I asked for his forgiveness, and he simply listened in silence. He came to visit me every day, except when he had to check on his fiancée. She even visited me in person, making sure I was okay and chatting with me. I tried to resent her, but I couldn't. She was kind, and I could see that she cared about me. Their twin boys are adorable, and my ex continues to make sure I take care of myself. He reminded me that, no matter what happened, I would always be the mother of his children. We remained friends, and last weekend, he came over to give me some time to rest while he cleaned the house and made breakfast, just like old times. I broke down in tears because, despite everything, I missed him, my husband, my best friend. I still don't understand how I let myself be manipulated so easily. My children are with me now, but things will never be the same. The one person I wanted most is gone, and maybe one day I'll leave too. But for now, I know I must endure this loneliness. My therapist says time heals all wounds, but some scars remain to remind us of our mistakes. I'm learning to live with mine. My youngest daughter has been my rock, understanding and encouraging me when I wanted to give up. Eventually, I was promoted to manager at work, and I fired Raven and the others who had played a part in destroying my marriage. My ex's new wife told me that one day I would need to forgive myself, but that's difficult now. Watching him build the life we should have had makes me wonder if the person who abandoned everything was really me. I had everything, but I allowed toxic people to convince me that it wasn't enough. They say you don't appreciate what you have until you lose it, but I know what I had, and I would never destroy myself. Thank you for watching.